live from Sicily. Alessio, hello, how are you doing?
Hello, everybody. I'm okay. Here in Sicily.
How's the weather today?
The weather is like July in Sicily. That is dry, hot. Not so hot today. It'll be more warmer yesterday, but lovely.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
We're lucky actually today to have some really sunny, beautiful weather here. Yesterday it was the complete opposite. Well, before we really get started, I just kind of wanted to give everybody something of a introduction from me of why I'm so happy to have you here and why I think what you guys have done is so important. Just so everyone watching knows, if you're new to wine, if you only come in maybe in the last like 5 to 10 years, you might think that maybe Etna put Sicily on the map, right? You might have a few names from Sicily in your head as big winemakers that really let the world know about Sicily. But the reality is that if I had to name one of the most important and influential wineries in Sicily that put Sicily on the map, it would absolutely be Planeta. But beyond that, it's what they also did that's so different from every other winery. Here we have a family that goes back generations, that is still a family-run operation that is extremely large. They actually work with nearly every terroir you can imagine in Sicily. So while it may have started in one location, over the last 50, 60 years, Planeta has expanded into all of these different areas, Etna being one of them, and are now making wines from all these different regions. So I can think of no one better to have here, if you're a fan of Sicilian wine, to help us understand Sicily, understand its diverse terroir and climate, and basically what's happening there now today and what to look forward to in the future, then Alessio Planeta. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
I think one of the first things that I'm really interested in knowing, because I've watched a lot of videos and things like that, and I must say, amazing videos from your wineries, with your winemakers, and I've seen how your workers are working. I mean, we're talking extremely large company here. How are things going ever since the situation with COVID and how things are recovering now? How have you worked around all of the precautions that need to be taken?
Yeah. So, country nature doesn't stop. So since COVID arrives, after the first days of shock, we realized that we cannot stop working in the vineyards. Sicily was affected, but not so much, because COVID was maybe like Phylloxera. Phylloxera arrives in a small quantity and later in Sicily, and this was the same for COVID. We have a little bit in the big city, almost nothing in the country area. But of course, we closed the office, but we didn't stop the operation in the country area, in the vineyards, because in the vineyards you can have we have people not close to each other, but of course we didn't stop. We try to postpone some of the works that you can postpone in the winery, but there are not so many things that you can stop in nature. So we had good days because we stay all together in the country area. I don't fly since March. I'm a happy person, and I slept for 4 months in the same bed. That is a miracle. That is a miracle. And at the end of the day, we go on. Of course, I think is people in the country area know that sometimes there is a word in English that I cannot use. Bad things happens because sometimes you can have dry, you can have a hell, you can have whatever. And this was COVID. So we say, okay, let's wait some months. But now the market start to restart. June was much better. Of course, we are far from the past, but now we are almost ready for the next harvest, because we start to harvest in 15 of August. So we have to prepare the wineries, we have to prepare people, ourselves, the vineyards, and whatever. And life's gone, and we will be, stronger after this. But of course, with taking care about our people and taking care about our business, but it's a difficult moment. Sicily react quite well. I see some numbers. Sicilian wine of course, decrease the sales, but not in a dramatic way, because some of the Sicilian producers can play on the maybe off-trade wines in Italy, and so step by step things are restarting slowly.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I can definitely, say about Sicily is that there's amazing value to be found in Sicily. I mean, your range is a perfect example of that. And what we've certainly seen here in the States is that there is certainly more of a focus on buying wines that represent really good value to consumers. I've talked to a lot of retailers who have said, well, we're selling just as much, but we're moving out 10 times the quantity, and so same price, 10 times the quantity. So I can imagine that at least that's something that might be a bit of a saving grace. But you're looking at 6 different wineries across the region. In fact, what I want to do is I want to just quickly put up a map of Sicily and your wineries. We're going to come back to that later on in our conversation. We'll really start talking about each one in specifics. But just to give everybody an idea of what we're looking at here. So we have Sicily, the entire island, and through here you have all the different wineries from Planeta.
Yeah.
So you were telling me the other day that in the average year you travel how many miles without leaving Sicily?
I do 50,000 miles, 40,000 miles every year without going out from the island with my car. And Sicilian roads are not exactly highways, but I like very much is the most interesting part of our life is for me is to plant vineyards, to project vineyards and wineries in a new place, and I can say I know Sicily quite well, especially from Memphis going to. And I was born in Memphis. We started in Memphis on the southwest of Sicily, and from this area we start to explore all the island with a very clear idea. And some years ago, I find a book here in the library. I'm here in the library. We have a collection of books about wine, and there was a book there was a chapter called I vini fantasma, so ghosts wine. So there was some wines in Sicily that was a part of history of Sicily, but for some reason people start to produce less and less. And in '97 we start to explore Sicily, try to producing again this wine. Some of them was still produced, but we have done it, and also we start to explore Sicily. Now we are in 5 different places producing completely different style of wine.
And that's really amazing because, in my opinion, most consumers, when they think about Sicily, excluding Marsala production, they're thinking that you have the mainland and then you have Etna. And what they don't realize is that there is such a drastic difference between all these locations. For me, the eye-opening experience was starting to read about your winery in Capomilazzo, and to see the surroundings and such is, I mean, we're talking the most northern tip of Sicily in the northeast there. That's amazing, absolutely amazing. It's funny you mentioned the library, because I also wanted to tune everybody else into one other thing, is that we were talking about some of our interests the last time that we were talking, and you had mentioned books, you'd mentioned the library and everything like that. And then I was thinking to myself about one of my favorite books going back that I loved, and I hadn't picked this up in probably 5 to 8 years. It was in my office library, and my office, for everyone here, the Vinous office it's been closed down. I've been working from home since this whole thing started. And so I cycled into the city today, and I cycled into the city specifically to pick up this book, which I'm sure you know this book very well.
Of course.
Robert Canuto, Commento, which has a great chapter on Planeta in here as well. So happy to have it back in my library, because it's a great book also on Sicily as well.
So I made a great book about Sicily that was important because it arrives in the right moment for helping to give a much more clear picture of Sicily.
No, absolutely. So I'm wondering, can we talk a little bit about the history of your family? Because it's an amazing history to think about how far back your family goes in the business. and then Diego and the changes that he made to the industry, to Sicilian wine, to paving the path to where we are today. Can you kind of give everybody an idea of how Planeta started?
Yeah, we are a kind of a family of landowners of the southwest of Sicily. Our name is a little bit Spanish sounding. Planeta is definitely Spanish sounding. So we arrived from Spain in the 16th century on the southwest of Sicily. And we were landowners of that area of Sicily. Southwest of Sicily today is lovely, but at the time of my grandfather was not easy because it was far from Sicily, was dramatically far from the rest of the world in the past, from the rest of Italy, from everywhere, and the southwest was like in the States, the concept of west, so it was quite far and isolated and unsafe. But my grandfather was a very energetic and old-style baron, dressed in white linen, wake up every morning at, I don't know, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And he was a special landowner because, you know, there was a story that very well known about how the big, some of the Sicilian old family lost the property because they didn't stay in the country doing agriculture, but they live as gods in the city or everywhere in the world. And my grandfather was completely different. He make agriculture in a modern way. He used to go. My uncle always said to me that every year he went to Verona to the Fiera Agricola. That was the modern event of agriculture. And we made in our farm many different things in the past. Like we had citrus, we had vegetables, we have wheat, and we have also vineyards, of course. And until between the two world wars, we had a winery in the village. So the kind of winery making wine for people for every day. In the past, you have wine at home every day. I remember when I was young, the workers used to come with a 3 liters can of mix of white and water and wine, fresh for all day. So they used to drink a mix of water and wine. So there was high consumption in wine in Italy, as you know. And then my grandfather, Vito, very Sicilian name, was one of the founder with some other people of a cooperative in Memphis, in the southwest.
Correct?
Sette Soli, yes, Sette Soli is the name. And my uncle Diego became very young president of this cooperative. And with my uncle, this cooperative became the largest cooperative in all Italy at that time. And my uncle was also is really a pioneer of Sicilian wine, not because I say this, but because many people say this. And he was also president of a Istituto Regionale Vite e Vino. That was the kind of before him useless office that with him became the lab of the Renaissance of Sicilian wine. To give you an idea, the consultant winemaker was Giacomo Takis, the winemaker of Sassicaia, blah, 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 really master. The consultant in viticulture was Attilio Scienza, the super famous viticulturist from the north of Italy. And there was other people in marketing. Was really the place where some people stay there and, you know, develop a new idea of Sicily. Because
what
Sicily,
time was this? I'm just, at what time?
Middle of 80s, in the middle of 80s. And I remember that the very famous Italian wine writers, Luigi Veronelli, used to say that Sicily at that time make silver wine with golden grapes. That was a very kind way to say that we make bad wines with a great potential. And so there was a big starting that at the beginning was a really, the problem was to say to the world, okay, we are here, we exist. So we have to go around the world to show what we was. And then that was the beginning. There was a moment where we talk about brands. There was a moment where we talk about, 10 years later, about variety. And now is the time where we talk about terroir. So it's a process of Sicily that takes 30 years. And now I think Sicily is in the best moment, of course, except the coronavirus that didn't help any wine area. And we are quite optimistic for the future.
I can certainly say that it seems that you guys are really at the forefront of that too, to really expose people to everything that Sicily has to offer. The range is absolutely amazing. You think that you know the portfolio of a winery, and then you start, doing a little bit of checking and research to write an article, and it's just like, it's absolutely amazing.
Confusion.
So, when Planeta started, so this was Diego, correct, in the 80s, and he brought you into the fold to start talking about what you should do to create the modern Sicilian winery, correct?
I think was a perfect new generation coming, because in '85 we planned the vineyard. That was the first vineyards on Ulmo where we started the project. And that was the time when I was a student. I studied agriculture. And when I finished my study, we start Planeta. I've done an experience first in Burgundy, then in a winery in Sicily as a worker, not as a winemaker, of course. And then we start Planeta. And with me, there was still today, of course, my cousin Francesca and my brother Santi. And 3 more cousins work with us now. We are 6 cousins. We are a Sicilian big family, as you.
Definitely a family operation.
yeah. And we start, but we start with under person. Diego was a little bit on the I say retired, so we will start to say we go on. And this was perfect because we had a person to chat with. But we have our hand totally free to develop a product Planeta that at the beginning was very, eclectic, if I can say, because when we start to make wines in the middle of 90s, was a very difficult moment for Italian wine and for Sicily. But was also the moment where the Italian wine start to, for me, having the click to rise, to reborn, really. And what was an inspiration for us was we know Sicily very well. So being first of all people that loves agriculture, Sicilian agriculture, Sicilian culture, and so I knew Sicily very well, and I realized in other time, because today everyone knows about wine, but in the 90s. Not many people know the diversity of the Nero d'Avola between Noto and Vittoria, or between Capomilazzo and whatever. And so we start to explore Sicily to try to really explore this special area. And it was really, still today, it's lovely, it's beautiful. Every time we move from one to another one is like starting from scratch. It's starting from completely new project. To have a picture of the diversity of Sicily, we had 20 local grapes, 50 ancient grapes, all the French grapes. We start the harvest on the first week of August on the west. Some producers make Pinot Grigio, sometimes start on, this year they will start, I think, 28th of July. And we finish the first days of November on Etna with the last days of Nerello Mascalese and the Eiger vineyards. So it's more than 90 days of harvest in a small island. This is the diversity of Sicily, I think is unique. In terms of terroir, I don't know if it's very interesting that the origin of Sicily is like this. The north of Sicily is done by mountains, big mountains. That is like, in Italy we have Appennini in the center of Italy, and then they start the Tarn, and this is the north part of Sicily. The southwest part of Sicily are soils that came out from the sea and came down from the mountain. Then you have the 2 southeast part of Sicily done with red sandy soils or white soils, and then you have the volcanic area, because now all the wine world is full of volcanic area. This is for me is new, but I want to say that what is in Sicily, that we have a lot of active volcanoes, so it's a little bit different. And you have the Etna, of course, the Eigers. Then you have the north of Sicily, and then you have the island in the southwest, Pantelleria especially. So it's a diversity that is quite unique.
And it was, I mean, speaking of Etna, that was Planeta's exploration to basically try to find Sicily's great expression and its great grape. Caricante brought you to Etna, right?
Yes.
And then Nerello Macalese is now also a huge production for you as well, which is really, really exciting. And you guys were not there. You guys were there in the early goings. Like, this was something that you were already looking at a long time ago, which is absolutely incredible. But, you know, another thing that always amazed me about Sicily is also the diversity of your food. So you're talking about terroir and how different everything is. And what a lot of people don't realize is that just where we're talking about wineries and how you can travel from one location to another and have completely different, you know, you can be in the complete southeast with, you know, a Mediterranean climate and, you know, it's and more limestone soils and such, you know, with food. Like, one of the things I remember when I was a kid, when my grandmother taught me how to make sauce, she would always say, you always get grapes. I mean, you always get tomatoes that are imported from Italy. You never use fresh tomatoes to make your sauce here in the United States. If you're in Italy, if you're in Sicily, you use fresh tomatoes to make your sauce. And the tomato business is actually a huge part for your family as well. I mean, you guys are really big in agriculture, not just in Sicily, but around the world.
One of the most interesting things about Sicily is that the position of Sicily was, still is, of course, in the central Mediterranean area. So in the antiquity, to dominate Sicily means to dominate all the Mediterranean area. That at that time was the center of this part of the world. And so in Sicily, we had many different civilizations that influence a lot our architecture in Sicily, and influence also a lot about our food, of course. In Sicily, we had Phoenician coming from Lebanon. We have Greek, we have Romans, we had Arabs, we had Spanish, we had Germans, we had British. We have people from everywhere. And the results is that on the west part of Sicily, you eat couscous, like if you are in Tunisia, in Morocco. In the south, west, east of Sicily, you eat a dessert done with chocolate and meat, like if you are in Mexico, in Spain. This was a Spanish recipe coming from South America. And if you are in the north of Sicily, you eat bacala, that is, of course, a recipe from the food from the North Sea. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of fun in Sicily fighting between Palermo and Catania, because you know the very famous classic arancina, that is the rice ball. We call in different ways. Arancina in Palermo and arancini in Catania, and we make in different shape. They make a little bit like a mountain, like Etna maybe, and in Palermo we make it like a ball. So and we like to play also on the diversity in food and in culture, and of course by our side in wine. That is for me super interesting, of course.
Absolutely. So speaking of wine, you know, were you always considering how much your family does and how many different things that they produce? Was wine always your passion? Were you always gravitating toward that side of your family's business?
Yeah. We start to be focused on wine in the last 30 years. We only have some almond, some citrus, and many olive trees, because we make also a lovely olive oil that is really a lovely project. But of course we are focused on viticulture, because when your organization move in you know, it's quite impossible during the harvest that you need to also to do other things, because all the people are focused. This is something very important for us. All people that work with us all year long. So right. Because this is something that in the country area make the difference. So we have Sicilians that work for us since generation. Maybe the father work with us, the grandfather work with us, and we hope that the son will work with us also. And we having together olive trees and vineyards is great, because you finish to pick the harvest and you start to pick olives. You finish to pick olives, you start to do pruning of olives, then vineyards, and then you can work all year long. And this is something quite important for the culture of the area. for me. You know.
That's beautiful to hear. It really is. It really is. It's one of the things I actually love about wine culture. When you talk to wineries such as like Vega Sicilia is a very similar thing where they have people that have been working with them for generations. And the current vineyard manager knows his job because his father taught it to him and his father taught it to him. It's a beautiful thing. So wine. Okay, we want to talk about terroir and we talk about wineries and things. So I've got a lot of great pictures to show people as we talk about some of your different wineries and some of what you produce there and the different terroir. But I'm going to put this map back up here for a quick minute just so while we start to discuss it, because so everything started basically at Ulmo, at Sambuca di Sicilia. Is that correct?
Yes, on the southwest, where we have our oldest property. Yeah.
And what do you produce there primarily?
Okay, Ulmo is at 250 meters on the sea level. Is on a border of a lake. There are not so many lakes in Sicily, and is a magic place. There is a lake. There are some system of hills. And just to give you an idea, 30 years ago, walking on the hills, mountains near the place, some hunters find a palmetto of 2,500 years ago, escaped in the rocks, a beautiful place, magic really. So, and when we think that people go there to make wine at that time, I think it's what Latins call a genius loci. So it's a special place where I think everything is in balance, the lake, the mountains, and the beauty of the forest. And it's a place that is today like it was maybe 100 years ago. There are not any what do you say, village or whatever. And here is where we start the product of Planeta. Start product of Planeta in 85. Was in 85, today everyone knows about wine, but in the 80s was another era. We didn't know which was the grapes that could work well or not, because I want to give you a picture of Sicily in the 80s. Sicily was full of vineyards, but we only produced white grapes for making bulk wines. So most of the grapes in Sicily, 90% was white and only 10% red. And in this 90% of grapes, most of this was Trebbiano and Catarratto. So only 2 grapes, focus on quantity. There was not an experience, serious experience in the middle of 80s about the other grapes. So we plant 50 hectares of vineyards on the border of the lake in 2 years, introducing some of the all the Sicilian variety and all the some of the French grapes. French grapes at that moment was like a white page on Sicily, and that was very important at the beginning, because in the 90s was too early to go around the world, to go in the States to talk. Okay, I'm here. I make a nocera. Do you want to taste it? And was also, you remember the moment of the geography of wine was ready to change. There was the big success of the New World wine. And at the beginning, we play a little bit of this. Then after this, we realize, because today we can say that we have done something like a map of Sicily with our experience. And I realized that there are some places where you can only plant native grapes, but there are some places where French grapes works very well.
Right.
Maybe like in Tuscany, you have some place where you only can play music of Sangiovese, but there are some places like Bulgari where the Cabernet Sauvignon give you great wines. And the southwest of Sicily is an area where for example, we've done our Chardonnay that was still today is flag exactly. Thank you very much. I know this guy. This was a wine that for us still today is crucial. Is a one that put us on the map, like you said, and was a wine that rang a little bit the bell of something new coming from Sicily in the 90s. Is a wine that was done by me and my master at that time. That was my winemaker, and the master for me that was Carlo Corino. And of course, I fly back. Yeah. I fled back in '91 from Burgundy in like a classic young, exuberant, stupid winemaker. And I said, I would like to make a Chardonnay here. And Corino fly back from Australia. This man, if I can, I say in the 30 seconds story of Corino that is for me it was crucial for Sicily. When in the middle or in the end of the 80s, Diego was looking for a wine consultant, and he knew the story about this person called Carlo Corino that was born in Alba, same generation on same school of Angelo Gaia, of Ceretto, of this kind of people. The father was the director of the enological school of Alba, spending all his life translating from Latin to Italian the most important book about wine, that is a naturalist history of Vino, that I still have the original one of the 98 here. So quite the most important wine, book about wine. And so this person, Corino, that was really a master, studied all his life viticulture. When he finished his study, he went to work first in Piemonte for 1 year, then moved to Ethiopia first, and then to Australia from the 70s to 89. So in the moment where really Australia was the place of making, winemaking in warm area, because the Italian school was a school of Piemonte and Tuscany, so a northern school. My uncle Diego fly to Australia. He make him an offer he can't refuse, and he fly back to Italy in '89. And with him, we developed the start of Planeta. At the beginning, there was a lot of, modern kind that was using of barriques, using of cold, and nothing special today. Today is very simple, but in the '80s was another story. And so with him, we start to making a Chardonnay barrel fermented that still today's signature of Planeta, from two beautiful vineyards, one on the border of the lake, another one at 440 meters. So, this is another one.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. If I could just try to sum up everybody, I can't place these in Burgundy. I can't place these in the New World. I can't place these. It really is. It's so unique. It's a beautiful wine, absolutely. And this is the one that really put you on the map. So, great. Everybody these days are always like, oh, native varieties. But the fact is, when an international variety works, go for it, right? I mean, look at Tuscany, like you were saying. Look at the Super Tuscans that basically changed Italian wine.
There are some terroir for these grapes. There are many terroirs in Sicily that are more focused on other grapes. This was our journey. Right. In Vittoria, in Noto, in Capo Milazzo, we have 100% of local grapes. In Etna, we had 90% of local grapes. We had some drops of Riesling, but 1 hectare on 40. So, but in Memphis, proudly we grow Chardonnay. We grow also Fiano. We grow also Grillo. We grow many other. Exactly. This is Capo Milazzo. That is.
Right. I want to put this up because you mentioned it. You mentioned more than native grapes, and this is something I'm really excited about. Yeah. I haven't tasted these wines yet, but when I started reading about this project, it was just, amazing to me. Can you actually tell me a little bit about what we're, what we're looking at here? Talk about this terroir a little bit, just so everybody knows. We're talking now about that location that is in the far northeastern part of Sicily, which you don't really hear much about. I would love to hear what the terroir is like here, and also what these native grapes are like.
Yeah, northeast of Sicily is a really unique place. There are 2 appellations. One is Faro, that go from Messina to the south, and the other one is Mamertino, that go from Messina to the west. Grape in Mamertino is Nero d'Avola and Nocera. And Nocera is only in the area of Messina. It's a wonderful place. It's like a promontory of 5 kilometers coming out from the mainland and going in the direction of the Aeole Island. And the story of the soil is unique, absolutely unique. is a mix of alluvial soils, but the last part of the Capomilazzo is covered of volcanic soils, because every here, since always, there is Stromboli in front of the island. Stromboli, that is the Aeolian volcano, always active. You see from the picture, you see in front of you the some island. These are the Aeolian Islands that were volcano. One of the volcanoes is Stromboli, and is still always active. And so you have this promontorio Capomilazzo. You have down alluvial soils, and over like 1 meter of cenere, ash, sabbia volcanica, so volcanic sand coming out from the area of it. The place is quite unique because the vineyards are literally surrounded by the sea, and this appellation called Mamertino is also a great history in wine, because Mamertino was one of the favorite wine of Giulio Cesare. When the Roman Emperor Giulio Cesare conquest Spain and Gallia and France, he used to drink two wines. One was Falerno, the other one was Mamertino. And the Mamertini were big warriors living in the north of Sicily, between Sicily and Calabria. So as you can imagine, very bad people, because if you live between Sicily and Calabria, you must be really strong. And Mamertino came also from Mars, god of war. So that this was an idea, that was an area. And when the Romans arrived in Sicily, they prefer to produce wheat and not wine in Sicily, except in this area where they give the right to the local people to grow vineyards. For Planeta, going there was a project also of this place is property. All the vineyards are our property, except this one that is property of a foundation that take care about the children of the area. And we pay for having this land, and we completely restore the place, and we plant this vineyard. And another special things so Nocera, that is the grapes that make the difference there, is for me one of the gems of Sicilian viticulture. There are, I don't know, 30 hectares, I think, no more. And it's a unique variety. In this area, we also plant a little bit of these ancient grapes that the Sicilian government save. We plant 3 of them, called Lucignola, Vitrarola, and Catanese Nera, that was selected in these mountains over there. Not the Catanese Nera, honestly, the other one.
And how are those grape varieties faring? Actually, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have a question here from Sid, who just asked, how this experiment is coming along.
We make every year something like 200 bottles, 300 bottles of each, that then we make for our new wine club that is starting to grow. And also it's something that for me is a way to keep the diversity safe, more than making wines. They are diverse, not easy. If the local workers prefer Nocera, there must be a reason, but it's something that you have to keep. One of them, Lucignola, is very close to Frappato, very similar to Frappato in style. Catanese Nera is a little bit like a tinteur, so something like with a lot of color. And the other one, Vitrarola, is quite unique. The name Vitrarola means glass, because the wood is a little bit, the color a little bit of glass. So this was why the name came from. They are very interesting for a wine lover. More than
definitely a boutique production.
Yeah.
It's a good reason to visit the winery on its own, right there, just to give these a try. And I also have to say, so for me, wine it's really about the whole package for me. Like obviously the most important thing is what's placed in the bottle, but I also love all the details. That's how I ended up, getting where I am and being so fascinated enough that I wanted to study these things. But I have to say, because there's always a joke about how average American picks out a wine bottle on its label. The labels are fantastic on these. I mean, for me, as someone that's all about the geeky information, to look at this and it's actually like a tactile feel and it shows the location.
If you touch it, I see. You see, you can touch the mountains. I want to say it's done.
It's beautiful. No, it's the whole package. It really is. I could imagine drinking this and just staring at the bottle the entire time. And
we like to play a little bit on with this wine. When you go in this place, you really are in the vineyard, but you feel like to be on the boat, and you feel like to be surrounded by the sea. And this is why you use this map, come si chiama, sea map, this kind of the one they used for sailing. And this was an area, the Aeolian Island, an area where a lot of fishermen used to live from Sicily, going everywhere. There were fishermen moving from Sicily to your area, fishing, for example, whales. In the Moby Dick, there is only one person, except of course Acab and the other one. They talk about the Siciliano. One of the sailor men was the Siciliano, so coming from Sicily. It was a tradition from this area of doing fishermen. This is why we play a little bit with this.
That's beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about your project on Etna, because that is currently the hot topic. There's certainly a lot of popularity. A lot of people are trying to locate some unique terroir and vineyards there. And I'd love to hear about, we touched on a little bit, but what really drew you to come to Etna, and talk about finding location of the vineyards, some of the experiments you're running through. I know there's a really great story behind the 1614. So please let us know a little bit about this location.
Yes. So Etna was, I started to love Etna slowly. Now I'm in love 100%. When I started to make wines in the 80s, 90s. I loved the landscape of Etna. I like the story behind the volcano, the story of the Cyclops, the story of the beginning of our civilization, connected to wine. But I was not in love with the wines. The wines done in the 80s for me, and I realized why after. I didn't have the palate maybe at the time for that kind of wine. And the producer at the time, that was another wine era, maybe they don't manage for me, sometimes the aging, sometimes the wood. So I taste many red wine from Etna, but I was not in a total love. I was in love with the white wine from Etna. I remember some of the white from Etna, like Pietra Marina, like the wine of Murgo, wine of Otis. They make a great white wine at that time. And so when in the second half of 90s, second half of 2000, some producers start to arrive on the Etna. I'm talking about the Toscanian wine like Franchetti first, and they start to make a completely different quality. And the local producer, of course, they start to work much better. I still start to understand the enormous potential of Nello Mascarese. Maybe in the 90s I didn't have the palate for the style of that wine, and maybe the wine was not done with the same, I want to say, style and same experience. The mix of this bring us to plant first white on Etna and then red. I was in love with Caricante. I was in love with the aging potential of a white wine. I was in love with austere. Now all of us talk about minerality in wine, but if I want to be the world championship of a concept of smell and flavor and taste of something similar to minerality, for me is Caricante. Sometimes it is smoky, it's acid, it's really like really leaking stone.
And a lot of aging potential too. Most people don't even realize how well Caricante can mature.
Yes, and honestly, I want to say that step by step, when myself or with, I always say that to make a good wine, you need at least 10 years, and so you need time. And the other producer now, sometimes some of the Nerello Mascalese, some of the Etna Rosso are absolutely unique and great. And so I really changed my perception of Etna since more than 10 years now, because the quality of the red wine now is really top elegance, whatever. And so I went there first for Caricante, and then for Noto. And the first vineyards we buy, the first land we buy, was not in Etna. This is a funny story, because I didn't know in the past that there was a part of volcano inside of the DOC and a part outside of the DOC. For me, it was ridiculous, because the Etna is the Etna, you know.
Right.
It's the only one of the few terroirs that have a very clear geography, because it's done, you know, that 500,000 years ago, that geologically is yesterday, Etna was a gulf. And then as a mushroom, the volcano came out from the sea very, very fast. And so, by the way, we buy the first place in a place called Sharanova, exactly, that is on the north part of the volcano. And thank you very much for sharing this, because this was for me an inspiration. And I planted the vineyards. And after a couple of years, I've sent you have to send the paper to BDOC, and the people answer me back, sir, you are not in the DOC. This place is over the limit of the DOC. I say, are you joking or what? By the way, this place, and when we make the wine, we choose a different style of classification of the wine, because that for me is absolutely unique. You see all this. This is Etna view from over of the volcano, and the different color are the different eruption. And if you can see from close, there is also the ear of each of this eruption, and you can see that most of the wine area is over eruption that are sometimes between 600 and 500 years old. So this is something unique. You have to think that 500-600 years ago, that is yesterday, you had the lava under your vineyards, and in only 500-600 years, you have done a soil, natural soils, done with the ash coming from the volcano, done from the fertility of this ash. It's something absolutely unique, and for me is the most interesting classification that you can give to a wine, because if you assume that the other classification are I don't have the word, but if you call a place Meursault or whatever, is a name of the topography, toponomastic. Okay, this is a classification done with really you can know how many years the soils have. That's something quite unique for me. Absolutely. And I like it very much.
So, yeah, it's a shame, because I see we're already running out of time. I want to make sure I get to a couple of the other wineries. But before we leave Etna, can you just tell us the story behind? Here we go. That's right. Nope. The 16. There, you have so many wines in your collection. Here we go.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Exactly. And the vineyards that I was talking about is over an eruption del 1614. That is the longest eruption of every time, from 1614 to 1624. For 10 years, there was lava coming out every day from the volcano, making like a big tongue, an eruption, come from the top of the volcano until around 500 meters on the level. So this is why we dedicated and our vineyards are over this eruption. And this is 17th century was the most difficult century for Sicily. There were many earthquakes that destroy all the southeast and northeast of Sicily.
Right.
Eruption was a disaster. And so this is why we use this classification.
It's and people wonder why people are so excited about about Etna. It's just it seems like something out of a a sci-fi fantasy novel or something like that, except in wine. It's just absolutely amazing, the stories and everything like that. Before I move on to the next location I want to talk about, I have a question here from someone. But before I even ask you the question, I just want everybody to know the diversity of the way that they make their wines is it's vast. There are some wines made here that are made in extremely fresh style. There are some wines that are made in a slightly more international style. But the question that's coming from this person is about their use of bigger casks. They're saying the last time they visited you, they were noticing 5,000-liter casks for red and less toasted oak. Is this something that you're moving toward and across the board?
Yes, after many years of experience, we like that what we like. On the Etna, on Nerello Mascalese, dislike for me barriques. I only want big 50 and 35 hectoliters. And we use only this. We also use some concrete tank, big cask, no barriques. For the French grapes, done for Cerasuolo di Vittoria, we make a cru of Cerasuolo di Vittoria in 35 hectoliters. In Mamertino is 35 hectoliters. We use barriques for Chardonnay. We use barriques for French grapes on the southwest of Sicily, in the area of Memphis. So for me, the quality of tannin, exactly. This is a wine. This one is done without wood, but the other one, Dorilli, the cru is done with wood. But right. This is Dorilli is the cru, and because quality of tannins of Sicilian grape like Nero d'Avola and Nerello Mascalese. They don't like very much small wood because wood could be too aggressive. They only want a gentle touch of wood from. Okay, this is the area of Dorilli, southeast of Sicily, area of Cerasuolo di Vittoria. That is the only Sicilian DOCG. And the soils are red and sandy. I have a bottle here but it's really like the sand of the beach. So you can walk there after one night of rain eventually, because never rained there. So, but
I'm gonna take this down really quick just so people can see your picture a little. Here, the bottle. Can you show that again? The sand.
Yeah. This is the kind of soils. So really sandy, and this is the origin of these soils is. We are not far from the sea. You have the mountain, Iblei Mountains of 20 kilometers, and then is a system of terrace, marine terrace. So there was shells that after many time of rain, you have 1 meter of red sandy soils, and then some meters of shells, of white calcareous soils down of shells. The area is homeland of Frappato that. Like there is Cerasuolo is 50-70 Nero d'Avola, 30-50 Frappato. So it's focused on Nero d'Avola, but you must have Frappato. Frappato is the more aromatic red grapes I know. So it's like a bouquet of flowers of strawberry, of cherry. And Nero d'Avola is what we know, of course. But when you grow Nero d'Avola in the south, in the area of Cerasuolo di Vittoria, so on the red sandy soils, it's really give you a style of a very, for me, one of the most distinctive red wine I know. When you taste the Cerasuolo, you recognize the Cerasuolo even 10 years later. And it's a lovely place. It's where I start to make wines. I used to work in Kos in 92, 93. So yeah,
the year of Sicilian winemaking, absolutely.
Yeah, a big friend, and this is why when we start to explore Sicily, first place was Vittoria, where my family my grandmother was from that area. They was landowner there, so I was a little bit DNA there, but also the experience in Kos, and also a personal good feeling with Cerasuolo that for me is a lovely wine, really.
Nero d'Avola, I was just telling you, the last Nero d'Avola I had from Planeta was the Santa Cecilia.
Yes.
Right? Now that's from Noto?
No, Noto, exactly. Noto is really the corner of Sicily, the southern point of all Sicily, and of course of all Europe. The north of Africa is northern than the south of Sicily. There is a place, really an extreme southern viticulture. Soils there is white and calcareous. Exactly. This is the great picture.
That's an amazing shot.
Exactly.
Wow.
This what South is to see. You can imagine how diverse is Noto from Etna. Noto and Etna are really yin and yang, white and black. Southern viticulture, extremely southern viticulture, and Etna is really a mountain viticulture. Here, soils are white, a very low level of rain, but you can see big trees, relatively, because this kind of soils can keep any single drop of rain during the winter time, and the vigor is a low vigor area, but this is homeland of Nero d'Avola. Nero d'Avola was born in this area. Avola until 50 years ago, Nero d'Avola was only in the southeast of Sicily. There were no Nero d'Avola in other parts of Sicily, and Avola is a small village here near. Here we are in the corner of Sicily. There is a village, a fisherman village, that is full of winery on the sea. They used to have a winery on the sea, making wines and ship wine everywhere. This is a glorious moment for Sicily when the phylloxera arrives everywhere. In Sicily arrives 20, 30 years later. And there was a window, there was a moment where Sicilian used to still produce wine. And of course, there was a big demand of wine because at that time, wine was energy for workers. So
Right.
from this area, they sell wine everywhere. And the red wine from this area have a very low pH, very good acidity, quite strong, perfect wine to be shipped in the 200 years ago, where you can imagine was not very easy and clean the way of moving wine around.
It's amazing. It's stunning, and it's certainly a scene that you don't expect from Sicily. It's beautiful, and we think back to the picture that we saw from Vittoria, and you think about how lush everything looked there, right? And then when you go back to when we were first talking about the Northeast and how coastal and just like windblown and everything, and the cliffs, the sheer rock faces, then to see this. I mean, this is all really, it's a great picture to show people of just how diverse Sicily is and how they can't just look at it as the mainland and then Etna. So I'm wondering, when you were talking about, barrels and such, you're talking about, drawing back, Etna not using so much of small barrels and such, concrete. I was wondering, have you done anything in amphora? I know you mentioned Cos. Cos is a big amphora project.
No. I respect people that use amphoras, but no, I'm not. I learned making wines with Carlo Corino. That this guy was a kind of person that I have to understand why I use something. And amphoras for me, I don't see a reason that I personally like. I respect people that make it. And so I used to work with concrete a little bit, with stainless steel that I like for some wines, and with wood, but not amphoras. Not amphoras. We work in a super. We follow since 10 years now with a program of sustainability that's called Sustain, and our vineyards are really in peace with God, in terms of we don't use any kind of pesticide, any kind of grass killer, and we are in a sustainable viticulture. In winemaking, I try to put less ends as possible. For me, the reason, the dream of any winemaker is to show terroir. When you taste the wine from Noto, you have to see, you have to feel the dryness, the white soils, the extremely southern viticulture, the hurt, the like Santa Cecilia is for me. And on the opposite, when you taste the Etna, you must have the luxury atmosphere, volcanic atmosphere, and this is what we try.
I mean, unfortunately, we're out of time. I feel like we can keep on going for another hour here, but we are out of time. And I got to tell you, this has been a real pleasure for me to be able to talk to you about this. I have a screen film and be following up with more questions for you. And to everybody that's been watching, I want to really thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank Alessio for being here and for sharing so much information. And if there's one message I can leave the audience with here, guys, go out, find some Planeta wines, experience these wines. They are experience wines. It's absolutely amazing what they've accomplished and what they've shown the world Sicily can accomplish. And I can't wait to see what they've got coming up next. So Alessio, thank you again. Is there any parting words or anything you have for the audience here?
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. I hope that I didn't speak too much, but I am, as a Sicilian, we don't speak a lot, but when we start to speak, it's not easy to let us stop. And thank you very much. And people want to have, first of all, I hope that people can be back very soon in Sicily, because it's what we dream about to host people. And thank you, Eric, for your time, and thank for the right, you helped me to talk a lot.
No, you did great. Thank you so much.